Hello, hello, hello. This is Dominique Drew broadcasting from Asheville, North Carolina. Hope everyone's doing great out there. Welcome to Radical Intimacy with Dominique Drew. I'm here with my co-host Josh.
Hola.
Thank you for joining me today, Josh.
You're very, very welcome, Dominique.
Josh and I wanted to we were brainstorming about some topics for our shows, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the self-criticism that we have in our heads a lot. It's called negative self-talk, and it's really intense. It's like the voice that you have in your head that's kind of telling you can't do it, telling you that you're not good enough, you don't know enough, you're not, smart, pretty, skinny, fit, muscular.
I would interject you can have any kind of self-talk, but the one that predominates, I think, most people's psyches is negative.
And that's actually true. So self-talk is a thing, right? That's just what we tell ourselves, but it's not just what we tell ourselves, it's how we see the world, and then we interpret it, and how we interpret it is that voice inside us.
Or yeah, I would say that the belief system or how you view the world tends to color the talk that you have too. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg.
It creates the talk, because if you see things as
right.
wonderful, then that's what you're hearing. I mean,
maybe you were saying the same thing.
They're one and the same. I'm right.
I believe you.
Is what we're
See, this show will go really well if I just say, yeah, I believe you. Yeah. See, I said I believe you. I didn't say I agreed. Subtle.
Good enough.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take what I can get in life. So self-talk is really kind of a major thing. Guys, you wouldn't even believe. Look up some research on this shit. It is unreal how much this influences your life. Like every moment of every day, most moments of every day, you've got something going on in your head, right? And it's colored. Like, think about that. Most moments of every single day are spent, interpreting the world a certain way, feeling a certain way about it, and then having that affect, you as a person. And if you think about that, you can start to see why this kind of thing is so incredibly influential.
Well, you're not, it's subconscious, so you're not consciously necessarily, having this conversation. It's like another word for beliefs you often hear is programming. So it's just kind of on autopilot. So that's kind of why and you might have said it, I just didn't understand. The belief system or the programming, whatever you want to call it, is running constantly, whether you consciously make that choice or not. So it takes some mindfulness and some work to shift that belief system so that the running dialogue is what you want it to be.
Right. You can get it to work for you, but if you leave it on autopilot, we talked last time about the life by default and life by design. And if you have a life by default and you're just sort of showing up to whatever's there, then it might turn out great, but you're rolling the dice, right, with your life, and your only life, depending on your on your beliefs, and it's a huge amount of time, and and things that are unconscious. Let's talk for a minute about unconscious versus conscious. So the unconscious mind, there's a number of different levels of what's controlled by your body, like your heartbeat. You don't consciously control your heartbeat, or the way your organs work, your digestion. And so there's that category. And forgive me, I've forgotten the names of the layers of the brain of what controls what. But there's the primal, fight, flight. What's the one in the back of your amygdala? The back of your brain, the brainstem, which is like the fight, flight. They call it the lizard brain, and that's sort of your strong emotions, right? And so there's things that your body controls with like without you thinking, heart, etc. Then there's some things that can go on autopilot, but which you can control, like your breathing. So you can go an entire day and not think about your breathing, right? Like you probably go most days without thinking about your breathing. But you can also control your breathing. I can say, take a deep breath, and you can adjust your breathing. But I could say, take a long heartbeat, and you're going to have a harder time, right? And then there's things that you can, like motor functions, arms, legs, wrinkling your nose, things like that you do with conscious thought. So there's a connection to the physical body there and how the brain works. But there's also, in your thoughts, there's a lot going on underneath the surface that you're not aware of. And the reason why that's important here is that when it's unconscious, it's way more powerful. It's way more powerful. So if I say, you're a great person, but on some fundamental level, you have confidence issues and you believe that there's fundamentally something wrong with you, then there's no way you're going to believe me.
You're just fucked.
You're just fucked.
That's probably what your internal voice is going to say. It's basal. I couldn't remember it either. Your basal ganglia.
Basal gang? Are you flirting with me?
I am.
Is that what's happening right now?
Maybe.
Shit, y'all. Shit just got real.
Yeah, it is your basal ganglia, also known as the R complex or reptilian brain.
Okay, so the amygdala is the emotions. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up.
Yeah.
So your lizard brain.
And it's the default. I guess that's an easier way to say it too. Like, this is your default. Because evolutionarily, if that's a word. Is that a word?
It is a word.
Excellent. Yes, it was not a strategic. It felt kind of strategic.
Strategery.
To me there. Evolutionarily, that's what we needed to survive, was a constant kind of scan. I think we talked about this last episode.
Yeah.
Scanning.
So let's go into that, because there's that's going to come up a lot, because a lot of what just about everything you do now is evolutionarily geared. Okay, but we live in a world which is telling you to act very much against your basal instincts.
Right.
Not that you shouldn't eat basil, because it is amazing.
And speaking from a male's perspective, and this is my own, so my perspective is that males especially, and I can't speak for the other gender, but we start off with, whether we can kill it, eat it, or fuck it. Like, that's about all that we care about. And then from there, then we start adding in layers of consciousness and overlays of, like, okay, in this context or this social situation, all the other stuff that is learned behavior. But that's where I start off with. And I think that there's kind of there's a interest in, like, not acknowledging that. And that's kind of sad to me in some ways.
Yeah, we spend our lives trying to pretend it's not there, or it's not happening.
Yeah, well said.
And it's also expected that you won't. So, one of the reasons I work with men with this work, and single men in particular, is because I think that the society's approach to the single men in the dating world is you're just between a rock and a hard place.
Well, and I think that really dovetails nicely into what you're saying, is that you have guilt, you have repression, you have a lot of, like, instead of acknowledging, like, hey, this is where we're all starting from, and normalizing it so that you can grow from that place. I'm not saying that you obviously kill, eat, or fuck everything that you interact with, obviously, but from there has to be, like, the default reaction, and then the conscious brain takes over. And the time period between your default reaction and when your conscious brain gets in there and gets involved, that gets shorter and shorter, I'm sure. So most people don't realize that, like, I think for males especially, a pretty girl walks by and you're like, literally, your body literally turns.
Right. Because every cell in your body is telling you to mate with that person.
Exactly. Mate the hell out of that person.
Mate the hell out of that person. And that's really important. Think about it, you guys. Every cell in your body. Like, that's a lot.
Really only a few cells are men concerned about. Generally in the crotch region.
But your brain's telling you to do it too. Mate, breed, quick, do it. Do it now.
Yeah.
She'll never know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not, Hopefully it'd be somewhat memorable. Even a bad experience. If she didn't even remember, wow.
Which, of course, brings us to the age-old question, is no sex better than bad sex?
That's like a chicken and the egg kind of thing. That's what your mom said last night, Trebek.
That's amazing. That joke has lasted like 3 decades, and it's still funny.
It is.
It's still funny.
Where were we?
We think we're funny.
That's all that matters.
That's good enough, right?
We were amused.
Should be fine. So I'm turning you down so I can't hear you.
Good.
Anyway, I'm just Josh seems to be fading out. Whoops, whoopsies. I hate it when that happens. All right,
we lost Josh. Technical
So
difficulties.
we lost Josh. Poof, clump, slump to the floor.
A
Whoops.
gunshot would be better.
That is. Yeah.
we
It's
do
like
need a
here. Does this smell like chloroform to you? Thud thud.
But we really need a soundboard. That would be awesome. But I think we should have the old school soundboard where you like actually had physical shit. Like you actually had a thing of gravel and like shoes, and you would walk on the gravel. Like that would be fun. They do that.
Who just what?
What is it?
What are you talking about? What?
The old like 1940s radio broadcast.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, super tangential. I'm touching.
Josh will not be returning after this show.
I'm touching my tangentials right now. I really like that. That's copyright.
That was me almost spraying tea onto my laptop. So
Which would have ended the show.
Thanks for that.
So so old 1940s radio broadcasts like The Shadow, he's fighting evil in the shadows. Like they had literal the sound effects. They had all kinds of contraptions, but like a lot of times when they were mimicking sounds, they would actually have like a tray of gravel, and then they would have a pair of shoes, and they would literally pick them up and walk on the gravel and have microphones picking it up. So instead of a soundboard, like we think of that as like well, why didn't you just? They didn't have that kind of technology. So instead of doing like a digital soundboard, I think we should just have props everywhere.
I think it's an awesome idea. However, I think the kinds of noises that would be appropriate for this particular show. Sorry, I'm back. I think the noises that would be appropriate for this particular show would be somewhat interesting to.
You're on the Demon Seed Network, so I'm fairly certain we could have like live.
All right, I'm
porn
gonna put out a
stuff.
Twitter call for. I'm not even sure what, but it's gonna be amusing.
Well, what I think would be fun is that you're like women willing to perform fellatio during a radio show, and you're like, but you're not gonna see it.
That doesn't matter. That's what this network's about, man.
True, that's true.
Woo, Demon Seed.
Satan's Spooge Network.
Good shit. Good shit. So, no sex or bad sex? We don't even know.
I'm gonna go. So,
you can tweet in.
young me. So, I think a lot of it has to do with hormones. Young me, and maybe I shouldn't say hormones. Maybe awareness.
You can't say hormones on the air.
Hormones.
You can't.
You know how to not make. You know how to make a hormone, right? Don't pay her. Ba-bum. Come on.
First of all, no, I'm not laughing at that. No, if you hire a bitch, you best be paying her.
Which is exactly why it's such a good joke.
Okay, I'm just saying. We here at Radical Intimacy do not support the non-paying of prostitutes.
Yeah, God no.
Yeah.
I think we also are very supportive of legalizing it. So that.
Oh my God, let's talk about. No, we shouldn't talk about that. That's going to come up a lot. It should
That's what she
absolutely, unequivocally, and absolutely be legalized, without any.
Well, it's going to happen either way. So it's kind of that whole prohibition thing.
Yeah, and then ladies out there or gentlemen. First of all, let's just talk about male whores for a moment. There are not enough of them.
You've looked? You sound like you're experienced.
Yeah. And I'm going to be more honest here since it's just the two of us and no one's listening. I have had moments in my life where I have been like, you know what? If I had somebody who was like properly marketing themselves and was able to convince me of their value, that they had like massive like skills.
Massive skills.
I don't care about the size. I care that you can use it properly. That's for me personally. It does not matter. But if I thought that you could rock my world, I have been prepared to pay for it.
Yeah, you say that, and that is true to a certain extent. But, if he's rocking a micro penis, he better know how to use that thing.
Then he needs to be able to use his hands.
Yeah, and its other appendages. Tongues.
Yeah, I don't care what you're putting in there. I care how it feels.
Maybe he's got a big nose,
Aw. Okay, I take back my previous statement. Never mind. So So yeah, I think that male prostitution is an awesome.
Well, how do we track?
Awesome
Let's
idea.
track back to the original subject.
Yeah, I think we were on negative self-talk, but now we're on male whores. So I think everybody's more interested in that.
Of course.
Let's-
They were like, we were tuning you out until we got to prostitution.
Let's be real. Yes. Then we started listening because it got interesting.
Oh no, good sex or bad sex?
Oh, yeah, that's
no
right.
sex, no sex or bad sex.
No sex or bad sex.
So what I was saying is that from a male's perspective, my male perspective, as I've gotten more aware, evolved, maybe is a word for it, I would personally rather have no sex. It's just not like, fuck it, I'll get off of me, I'll just do it myself. I'm better at it, and it's not enjoyable if, she's laying there like a dead fish and she's not into it. That gets real rapey for me.
Are you talking about me? Because that's
we've had sex.
because
Did
that's
you roofie
wait,
me?
was I not there?
Did you roofie me? God damn it!
Yes, but
If
only
I'm
after I
getting-
made you
if
sign
I'm
this
get-
piece of paper.
If I'm getting some, I want to remember that shit.
Well,
Even if it's bad,
I'll
I
dr-
want to remember it. And
I'll-
be like, let's not do that again.
I'll draw it out for you. You were great, and I laid there like a dead fish. Because that, gentlemen, is how I do it. That's how we do.
That's how we do.
That's how
You
we
just
do.
look at your nails,
Yeah, I'm like making laundry lists. Just
So I was thinking the other day, we should really.
no, there's no talking. Nobody wants women to talk in bed or out of it.
Oh.
Just kidding. I love the ladies
You do kind of love the ladies.
sometimes. Anywho, so negative self-talk is a thing, big thing, and it was interesting before we started talking about prostitution. Okay, so let's weave this in. So what negative self-talk might a prostitute have? So
No one is going to love her for who she is.
for who she is, who he is.
Oh, he is. Sorry, we're talking males.
I don't know. I just felt like correcting you.
Is there like a whole lot of male gigolos out there? Like that doesn't.
There's, I'm telling you, there's not enough.
Is there like I just they seem kind of like a unicorn. Like I know that there's women out there that are very lonely and that
Oh my
want.
gosh, I mean that would be a huge thing. Not just like there are some women that are lonely, like
You gotta stop talking about like huge things. When you're talking about male prostitutes.
huge,
Massive, throbbing,
so
turgid
big.
things out there.
It's so big, Josh. I can't even describe to you how big it is, but I will anyway.
It's all veiny. What? It's such a big problem. It's such a veiny problem.
It's a big throbbing problem in the world.
It's a big veiny problem. I'm gonna start saying dropping that in normal business conversations.
Please
just
don't.
to see if
It
people-
would be great if you didn't.
it's kind of a veiny problem.
Oh,
People
okay.
are like,
All
"What?
right.
Did he just
Josh
say
will not be
veiny?
returning next week.
Did he just say veiny?
Did he just say? Did that guy just say veiny?
So getting
Anyway,
back to that, there's not a whole
so-
lot of male prostitutes. I forget what was before that.
So negative self-talk. So the
Prostitute self-talk.
yeah. So if we have the sort of all right. So we'll go with stereotype. So the female prostitute, and she's not making very much money. Ladies, if you're gonna be a prostitute, don't give it away. Don't give it away for free. You have value, woman. People want what you got. Own that shit. Don't be entitled and obnoxious.
Okay.
Just value yourself, and that is what people desire. Okay, we talked last week about attraction, and I talked to men a lot about what they want in a woman, like a lot, and a lot of them, people think both men and women actually think that men want either skinny women or smoking hot women or big boobs or this and that, and often that's the first thing that comes to mind to a guy as well. But after just a minute or two, like just a question or two more, what they really want is a woman who's healthy, like about the body. I'll have a man who goes, oh, fat women, don't want fat women, something like that. And it's like, and from women too. Okay, well, nobody wants somebody who's my size, whether that's big or small or tall or short or, whatever that is. And it's like, well, that's actually not what I have found to be true. They want a woman who takes care of herself.
Well, yeah, kind of to track back to your original point about belief systems. If a woman says, or especially not a woman, a woman will, hear from 100 guys that she's beautiful and wonderful and great and sexy, and then one dude will say, she's kind of fat. And if her belief system is she's fat, she's
That's
gonna
the one she'll remember.
Yeah, that's the only one she'll remember.
Right.
99 pieces of evidence, and you discard them.
Right, and that's how we sort of prove ourselves right with whatever we believe. So whatever negative self-talk we have going in our head, I'm not worth it, I'm not beautiful, nobody wants me, I'm unlovable. You won't have these actual thoughts, but the evidence of them is you see in your life. Then you have life experiences, and you only remember, hold on to, and even notice the ones that prove you right. So if you're struggling with being, so let me just go back real quick to the men who are looking for healthy women. The idea that a woman takes care of herself physically, and I'm talking about taking care of yourself. I'm not talking about losing weight. If you're you're a heavier person, I was a heavier person for quite a long time. I just carried more weight, but I was where my body wanted to be, which is fine. So this is about being healthy for your body, and they want a woman who takes care of herself, because if you take care of yourself, it indicates that you love yourself. It shows that you care for yourself, you value yourself, and that is, ladies and gentlemen, wildly attractive.
Yeah.
Wildly attractive.
Yeah, confidence is sexy.
Confidence is sexy, and confidence comes from falling in love with yourself.
True confidence, yeah. We're not talking, not boastful, not cocky. Just
not boastful, not cocky, not arrogant. Those are all distortions of confidence, which is fine. But this, the self-talk that you carry in your head, I mean, it makes absolutely all the difference.
I agree. I concur. So I believe you. What was the thing I'm supposed to say to agree with you?
Anything. You say everything you say should be to agree with me.
Okay.
There's no other purpose.
Yes, ma'am.
Of you.
I'm just a yes man.
So that's a really huge concept, and this is coming from me talking to a number of men and what they want in a woman. And boy, that healthy, the women that men find sexiest are the women who love themselves.
Right. And I think that's where, so the traditional, there's a machismo, bravado, all the things that get kind of, Dominic, I like the word distortion, get distorted, are kind of exaggerations of very good emotions, self-confident, I say good emotions, very good self-talk, and framing it in our discussion is that, machismo is kind of a distortion of a natural male's,
assertiveness.
I was trying to say assertiveness.
It's aggression. Aggression is a distortion of assertiveness. So when guys tend to think that women want the asshole, or nice guys finish last, which this will not be the last time I rant about, that is the biggest fucking cop-out that I see in the dating world right now. Oh, nice guy. Nobody wants me because I'm nice. Man, whatever. That is so profoundly not true. It's just not true. What you're seeing, when you do see a woman who is with, when you see a woman who's with an abusive guy or an aggressive man, like, that's distortion on both sides, right? So that's not a healthy relationship. But what people are talking about is this sort of trend that women want, go for aggressive guys. What those women are looking for is the assertiveness,
right,
that comes naturally to that man. And of course, when that man goes into defense, that distorts to aggression. And then you see, oh, there's that girl with an aggressive guy. But that's not.
Well, it's yeah. Nobody. You kind of picked up on when you said nobody wants to be with me. I'm like, dude, you don't want to be with yourself. That's kind of the.
That's huge.
Yeah. And same thing when you talked about the aggressive, the woman with the quote unquote alpha male. She wants to, if he is overly aggressive, then you have somebody that wants to be dominated, probably to the point of being hurt, because that's what they feel like they deserve. So
that's actually a common misconception. Self-hatred and masochism actually do not, there's actually not that much of a correlation there. It seems like it would be logically, and that's actually something I actually hear a lot. I also hear a lot that people who are sort of into the sadomasochism scene have a lot of sexual traumas in their past.
I'm not so much talking about and thank you for correcting me. I'm not so much talking about physical abuse. I'm talking more around like kind of codependency, like being a doormat. That's kind of where I was going with it, but maybe that's still not true.
No, it does. It seems like it would be, but it tends not to be.
Okay, cool.
And you know, in particular, at least that dynamic. But of course, every relationship, like we talked about, you know, last time, you're drawn to someone because of their gifts, and you're also drawn to them because of their issues. Their issues either fulfill yours, or yours fulfill theirs. So if you're a doormat and I'm a steamroller, then we're going to get along super well.
Right.
And the interesting thing is the interesting question, to me at least, is, I forgot it.
Oh. Well, we can come back to it. I was going to say, so is it more along the lines, I think last time we were talking about it feels like love maybe to certain, so like you steamroll, if I'm the doormat, you steamroll me, then that's what something in my childhood made me feel like that's love.
Right.
Okay. So that's
you're fulfilling your belief that you don't matter, or you don't want to be seen, or you're not worth it, and I'm fulfilling my belief that I am the king of the world and will get whatever I want.
I do really I hate perpetuating things that are not true, so I appreciate you, but it's kind of the same. The overall conceptual piece is that some belief system about that on both sides is being fulfilled, or some self-talk is the kind of thing that you hear, but the belief system is what's controlling, or why you're we talked about attraction last time, why you're attracting that steamroller. If you're the doormat, why you're attracting that steamroller into your life.
Yeah, beliefs, people, are not the same thing as thoughts. That's really important. People sort of say, you know, I believe in this or that, or I think this or that. Those are not the same things. A belief is something you as a person are unaware of most of your beliefs. Like, I feel confident making that decision. Most people on the planet are not aware of what they believe. Okay, you're aware of what you think, right? You think that, let's see, because people use the word belief, but they're describing thoughts. So you think that America is the best country in the world, or you think that America is the worst country in the world, or you think that, you know,
big butts are good.
Big butts are great. You think that,
it's very dear to my heart.
We're bringing out the real shit now.
or other things.
You believe that prostitution should be, or you think that prostitution should be legal. See, I even just did it.
The butt-stitution?
The butt-stitution?
What the fuck? That's some strategery right there.
Some nuclear strategery.
You can't hug a butt with nuclear arms.
Wow. I don't even know what that means, but
there was
like
some stupid T-shirt back in the 70s and 80s that was like, you can't hug your child with nuclear arms. And it was...
Nuclear arms, you mean?
Nuclear arms.
This has just started being a thing now. It's terrible.
Yeah. There's... what is it? Nuclear? I didn't even... Did I say it wrong? Did I say it wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, and this nuclear... God damn, nuclear. Nuclear. So if we fuck it up, just
blame George Bush.
Yeah, we have it right. So like those are thoughts, right? Even if you're like, okay, you know, white people are better than all the other people. It's like, okay, well that's a thought. Like you're going to use the word believe, but that is a conscious thought, and it's a thought because it's conscious. Okay? If you can talk about it, that means it's in your conscious awareness. And most of the shit that you believe is way in this, you know, reptilian brain, this unconscious brain, where it's functioning behind the scenes. You know, picture it like a stage. Like part of it is visible, and you're sitting there watching it, but behind the curtain, even while the play is going on in the front, on the sidelines. What? I'm shaming my theater days. I used to actually do this shit. That's bad. Anyway, backstage and side stage and whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, on the other side. Okay,
backstage?
Yeah. Backstage, yeah.
Huh. Anyway. Sorry,
there
I've done a
might
lot
be-
of
you
weird
might-
shit in my life.
You might be looking for some other technical term, but
It might
backstage
be.
gets it.
But anyway, it's backstage. So all this stuff is happening, and that's where everything is sort of built up. You know what I mean? Everything is designed. All the inner workings are happening, and the fucking kicker of it is that shit is the driving force. So it doesn't really matter what's happening on the stage, believe it or not. All of the things that are impacting you as a person are backstage. So Josh talked earlier about the woman who heard 99 times that she's beautiful and one time that she sucks. And
Not in a good way.
And that's going to be really functional. Now there's a couple of things though. There's that concept's a little bit more complex than we're making it, because evolutionarily we are designed to be on the lookout for danger. So we tend to be geared more towards negativity in general. Okay, for example, everyone talks about how sort of negative the news is, and there's all these shitty things happening on the news, and oh my god, why do we have to hear all this and this type of thing. A few years ago, there was a group of people who started a positive news network. Yeah, and they just wanted to put out here's all the great shit that's happening in the world, this type of thing. Guess what happened?
It failed miserably. Well,
it failed miserably because that's not what people are. Because here's the thing: we're out in the wild, and what is concerning to me is that I'm not going to get killed, and my babies are okay.
Well, I guess you could almost say manic ones of us were the naturally selected ones, the ones that were constantly searching, at all times, scanning the horizon. That's the ones that survived and procreated. So we all are these obsessive,
exactly,
and so that
it's about survival.
Yeah, well, that the least genetic properties, and you can make the argument for other, emotional or energetic patterns that got passed down. I'm not even making that argument, but just from a purely physical standpoint, the ones with the attributes that were constantly manically searching for what was wrong, and that was probably, maybe you could phrase it slightly different, but that's effectively we're taking our database. I mentioned that last time. We have all these, whatever bad shit that's happened, we've got this database. Is this a bad thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this a bad thing?
Right.
So the negativity, I completely agree with you that there's this constant comparison to does this suck? Does this suck? Does this suck? Does this,
yeah.
Or it is going to kill me, I guess is probably the real.
Yeah. Is it going to kill me?
Right.
I mean, that's really, it's amazing how much of our day we spend, doing that, eating, reproducing, surviving.
Right.
It's that really is. And I don't mean this in an insulting way. Obviously we're wonderful beings and everything. It's just really good to remember, what your body is telling you every moment of the day, because it's talking to you.
Well, yeah, to practice, I think the mindfulness, it's creating awareness of that. Remembering, I get what you're saying with remembering, but I kind of, as far as when we're talking about negative self-talk, I kind of beat myself up sometimes, why didn't I remember that? It's not you're talking about. I think you made the point very clear. It's not a thought. This self-talk comes out of, the deeper belief system that you are unaware of. So
right.
It was counterintuitive to me, and it took me a long time to become aware that I'm not in control per se of that self-talk, until I get intentional and try to shift my underlying belief system.
Right. And you can become aware of them. That's the work that I do. So I run this program, The Art of Attraction, that takes, single men who want to start taking control of this part of their lives and be happier around women and sexuality and intimacy and all that shit. And it's this 2-month course. And throughout these 2 months, we go deep into what you actually believe, because there's some reason why you're not getting what you want when it comes to women. Right? There's something that's about that.
Nobody wants a nice guy like me.
Exactly. Okay. Oh my God. There's so many distortions in that. I don't even know where to start. But it's possible. And there's these collective beliefs also. I mean, there's this whole world here, and that's what we're gonna make this show about, is really, teaching you about this shit and how you can make your fucking life better. But in the art of attraction, single guys come to me and they're like, okay, I have X, Y, and Z pattern. I'm done with it. I want to move on. And I go, great. Let's figure out how you got it, what it's doing to you, what it is, how it's affecting your everyday life. And then I'm just bringing them to consciousness.
Well, tell them how you can get to it too, so they can.
Oh yeah, and I'm at DominiDrew.com, DOMINEY, Drew, DREW.com, and that's my website, and I'm at DominiDrew on Twitter. And if you want more specifically about there's a link on the, I think, Work With Me page, the website, but there's go to the Work With Me page, and there's a little link there, and it'll take you to DominiDrew.com/hello, which has a place where you can sign up and listen to the video. And there's a video, 15-minute video that really explains in depth, what it is that I do and how I help people. And there's just shit tons of testimonials and people who've worked with me. And I'm really grateful about it. I have amazing testimonials because I just get incredible results with people because, by the time they get to me, they're ready to change, and that matters a lot. I'm actually really, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm actually very selective about who I work with. I actually don't work with a whole lot of people because a lot of the process is dependent on the person. So they need to really be ready to, drop their shit and, move on to the next thing. If they're still attached, if they're like, well, it's not me, or it's, it's annoying, but I don't really care that it's happening. It's like, well, then that's not this work, because this work is transformative. It's very deep.
Well, and one of the things that I really appreciate about you specifically and just other people that are doing similar stuff for men is that there's just so little resources out there. I mean, just having this conversation is probably, for a lot of you out there, the first time you've heard some of these concepts in the framework of what is as a male dealing with these issues. Yes, you've probably heard very similar, if you even paid attention, because you're like, it's fucking Oprah or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of shit. But the real, how do I get somebody that, lights my fire and will actually, I actually want to spend time with.
Yes. How do you meet someone who fulfills you, who you don't lose yourself in them?
Oh, yeah.
You can still hold on to your masculinity and still be in relationship with someone. Shit like that.
Right. Exactly. What's the cuckold or whatever that term is? How do I not get, and that there's all these cultural like jokes we have about those kind of dynamics where like, sometimes she lets me, have my genitals and I get to leave the house kind of thing.
Right. So let's talk about that for just a minute. This is one of my favorite things, and I reference this a lot in my in the Art of Attraction in my program.
Is keeping males' genitals?
Yes, I try and help men keep their genitals. It's funny you should mention this. Actually, is one of the goals. Is like I call it standing in your power, but keeping your genitals actually has more of a ring
you get
to it.
Keep your boys.
I might adjust that actually. So let's talk about these stereotypes. So we got the stereotype of the typical male who is like out at work all day and then he comes home and sits in front of the TV and doesn't want to talk and like communicates in grunts, right? That's a confirmation grunt from Josh. and then there's a stereotype of women who are like nagging and talking all the time and always sort of, invading their husbands and, oh, honey, how was it? Like, let's talk. I want to talk about our feelings and all this type of shit, right? All right. So what have we been talking about throughout this episode? We're coming back to we're coming back also prostitution. We're coming back to evolution. Okay. So this is a big one. This is actually a really big one. This was quite, this was a paradigm shift for me when I learned this. So let's go back to evolution. So when we say evolution, by the way, we're talking like it was only maybe, let's be super generous and say, I don't know, 10,000 years. Let's just go 50. Let's go 50,000 years ago. We were in like nomadic tribes at this point, right? Yeah. Like there's no, like little civilizations and things like that. But
I mean, we were probably like it was just family units probably running around trying to stay the fuck alive. Like I'd be surprised if we even had 10, 20 people together.
Exactly. So life was and life was like that from 50,000 years ago till millions of years ago. So evolution. Here's the thing about evolution. Evolution happens very, 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 very slowly. Very slowly. So we look at our current society, which is, I don't know, 5,000 years old, even roughly. Nothing, and I mean nothing, happens evolutionarily in 5,000 years.
I mean,
Nothing.
I think I agree, and I think to add to that, you can have big jumps, but you carry the past with you evolutionarily.
So the jump happens. You're talking about a mutation, and a mutation will happen, and then that one will survive more, but nothing moves that fast, because even sometimes the mutation will then that one will die, and it'll take another 100,000 years or 500,000 years for that genetic mutation to come back, or for another one. So the fact that things are as efficient as they are. Look at our physical bodies. Our physical bodies are like fucking masterpieces. I mean, they are masterpieces. Like, the way that ecosystems work and the way that species work in this planet is unfucking real. It's extraordinary, really.
Yes, so it does take forever, and because our life cycles are so long. So you're right. It's long, many
iterations. I mean, millions. I don't mean like 100 or 200 or 500 or 1,000. Like, it's a lot. So why is this relevant? So up until a few thousand years ago, here was our life structure, okay? Wake up in the morning. The men get together in groups and go off and hunt, okay? The hunting is done in silence. Spoiler alert. Because if you're chatting, then you scare away all the food, okay? So the men are together in groups. They're not talking. They're hunting prey, and they're communicating in grunts, which have a lower frequency in the sound and don't carry as much, so they won't scare off animals. Okay. Meanwhile, the women are at home, or at the camp or wherever, gathering. Okay, berries, fruits, nuts, whatever, doing the gathering thing with raising the children and developing language. Okay, they're chatting, because there's no need to be quiet. So when people talk about, how women want to talk all the time, or how we have sort of more sophisticated verbally, we do tend to be more sophisticated verbally, because we developed that. That was what was necessary. So this happened up until, 5,000 years ago. I'm a little uncertain on that date. So I'll go whatever, 10,000. And look how slow evolution is. Nothing has happened in the last 10,000 years that has changed us from that, except for being born into a world where that didn't quite fit and you had to adjust. Okay? But that's not evolution. So then the cellular structure is still in this, well, we have to go out and get food. And you guys, no offense, but y'all weren't that great at hunting. So you only caught something like every 2 weeks, right?
Have you ever hunted anything?
I'm just saying. Look, I'm just saying that we were able to make everyone survive with the gathering thing, and sometimes we had some meat and sometimes we didn't. But I'm sure it's all very well intended. But like,
you get your ass out there and hunt something. You tell me how often you catch something.
Touche. I do not want to do that. But I also want to stay home and raise the baby.
Especially things that can kill you. Like, that's a lot of there's a lot of commitment.
It was a mammoth. Come on.
You see Ted? It killed Ted.
Ted. So that shit's really important. So now here we are in 2017. You wake up in the morning and your cellular structure is telling you to get up, go find your buddies, and go hunt. Okay? Like, you have to understand that your body is the same body that was, with your particular genes, obviously, from a few thousand years ago. So yeah, you come home from the end of your day, you've done your shit, you're tired, you want to watch TV or do sports or whatever, and your wife wants to chit chat. She's been home all day alone. Whatever your dynamics are. And it's not that one's better than the other, or one's right and one's wrong. It's just about knowing the situation. Like, I find that my relationships with men are more successful when I give them space.
Well, yeah.
And you know what? I also like space. That matters to me a lot. I'm also kind of a dude in a lot of ways, and that is one of them. But I find a lot of men, and this bothers me because I find men feeling guilty about it. Like, oh, I should be more so. She always wants to talk, and I feel badly that I don't want to talk, and it's all the time. I mean, you need to talk to your ladies. Like, let's be real. But as far as incessant, or if you need your space, you need to be able to assert that. I'm sorry, I can't talk to you right now. I will come back and talk to you about it later, but I need space. You know, verbalize, communicate. This is where women sort
honor
of
your
excel.
agreement. So when you say I'm going to come back later, you need to come back later. That's a lot of relationship issues, at least in my experience.
I would agree with that.
Because doing what you say, then if you do that, then
Develops trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then they will. Okay, you're at least done it before.
Right.
You set a precedence for that.
Right.
But when you don't come back, then they're just going to keep nagging.
Right. Yeah, and also do come back. And if she's got a problem with it, then you need to prioritize yourself. Again, falling in love with yourself. Who's the priority here? Like, she's very important, which is great. Sometimes you may put her needs in front of your own, which is lovely. However, on a thing like this, it's like, what do you need to be a healthy, happy man in a relationship? Because I find a lot of women trying to turn their men into women and being, and that's a fucking lose-lose.
Right.
Right there.
Well, they're just going to be frustrated all the time.
They're going to be frustrated all the time.
I'd love your analogy of the kind of the process behind evolution, why males, want some. So think, I can absolutely. I've hunted before. I'm not a hunter, but I strongly identify with the.
Were you in a loincloth?
The need to. Yes, I was.
Do you have pictures? Pics or it never happened. We'll be uploading those on Twitter later at Dominique Drew.
You just got 5,000 followers. That's
It'll
awesome.
be Josh in a loincloth with a spear.
It's my spear, but all right.
And he's also carrying a weapon.
Yeah, he's also. All right. So, but really strongly identifying with that hunter, go out and make a kill kind of thing. And when you think of it, it did bother me, honestly, when it was funny when you kind of triggered me when you said that, you didn't catch that much. But when you go out and you're putting your life on the line and you really are, when I say put your life on the line, sometimes it was actually because something could kill you. Yeah. But it was also like, if you knew the pressure of like, if I don't kill this, one member of my family could die. So you had all this. Right.
It matters. Shit mattered a lot because nobody was tweeting back in the fucking day. It
Right.
was like you're doing something because you had it to survive, and you weren't doing anything that you didn't have to survive.
Right. Well, and the reason I said in the outset was that we, it was probably a small group, was because we were just barely scavengers, and as we evolved to where we actually could survive now, then we started using tools, and we did start banding together and things like that. So we started off, very like basically, just fucking hiding under rocks. Mm-hmm. And so the next evolution that was very effective, that's what the modern, humans are kind of exactly what you're talking about, that you had to go out there. It was this tremendous amount of pressure. It was super dangerous. Even if the prey wasn't that dangerous, you fall and break your fucking anything.
Oh, everything was dangerous.
You're dead.
Everything was dangerous.
Well, but I mean, you sprain your ankle, you're dead.
Yeah.
You can't keep up with the tribe. You're dead.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, everything was dangerous.
Dead.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
So when you had that level of engagement and you do that for even a couple hours, and that's probably unrealistic. But let's say even an hour, 2 hours in a life and death situation.
Oh my God.
And you come in, you need to decompress.
High stress.
Yeah. And you don't want to fucking talk to anybody. And let's say that you and I'm just trying to add the male perspective here. Like, let's say you had to wrestle with a fucking, 3 of you had to wrestle with a bear or something. Then, you just had this experience that you almost died. And you tell me that you don't want to talk to anybody. You don't, I mean, from a male's perspective, I don't want to talk about my feelings. I just need to figure out where the fuck I'm at.
You need to process.
Yeah.
And men and women process differently. And I think that's also something that's missed a lot in today's world. You process differently, and that's okay. We've evolved. Here we go.
Right.
To process differently. Some shit happened. Some shit went down. I wasn't there for it because I was at home.
That's
like 14 babies strapped to my back.
Right.
That's how it worked, right?
Yeah.
And
well, the babies had babies strapped to their back.
The babies had babies
Probably literally.
I had one little papoose, but then I had like 14 papooses on it.
It's like Russian nesting dolls.
I know how babies work. As you can see, this is also my field of expertise. Babies. Yeah, but it's absolutely true. And you had this very different experience, and you process it differently. And it's perfect for exactly what it needs to be. You have to feed us.
Well, and this is kind of an epiphany for me, and you might not be for everyone else, but just our feelings and emotions being up in our like conscious space would not have been effective during a hunt. If I'm like, oh, I'm super scared, or I want to,
No.
so
You needed to be stoic.
yeah, and that kind of actually, I've always been really hard, talking about negative self-talk, I've always been really hard on myself that, like, people are like, where are you at? And I'm like, I have no fucking clue where I'm at. Like, how does that make you feel? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know that I've heard other women echo that. They're like, I'll ask him what he wants, and he's like, or like how he feels about that, and he's just like, and that's probably a genuine like thing. And not the problem. One of the issues that I see when you talked about, processing, is that we've kind of medicate our way out of that with distractions instead of actually sitting there and being sort of stoic, being peaceful,
Right.
being in the company of men, where we can like have that support system of like, shit, dude, I was there when that bear tried to take your head off, dude.
Right.
It takes us a while to like just give ourselves
And
permission.
it also takes a while. Okay. One of the things, and what you're talking about is just beautifully illustrating exactly what you said, which was that women, that's that sophistication that women have. They are better with language, so they can put words to emotions better. That's a language thing, right? They're better with, they have a broader, more intricate, knowledge of often social dynamics, but also of language, and then that translate, and then it's also faster. That's where I was going with that. One of the ways you can tell it's more sophisticated is it happens more quickly. Women process, oh, like, let's talk about it. Oh my gosh, let's talk it out. Let's talking at all. And also, like, I just asked you a question. I want the answer now.
Right.
And like, ladies, something that can really work well, like, look at who you're in a relationship with, not who you want them to be, who you decided they are, who you're forcing them to be. But like, how much time does that person need to process? Like, I've had people say to me, we had a talk, and I asked him a question, and I talked about my opinion. He didn't really have a feeling about it. And then he came back 2 days later, and I had totally forgotten about it. And he gave me his thoughts on it. And maybe he just needs 2 days to think about something. And maybe he's actually being considerate and,
right.
Actually putting thought and time into really processing what you're saying. Just because it doesn't look the way it does for you or the way you think it should look does not mean it's wrong.
Right. I mean, this is great. This is a great discussion. I really feel for my personal self, like, how often I've done that exact same thing. Like, it took me a week to figure out how I've actually felt about something. And it was not for lack of trying. It was not because I was disinterested in the conversation or didn't really care about the subject.
Yes.
It was big. In fact, that oftentimes obscures how I feel. And it still kind of plays back into this evolutionary thing that we're talking about, in that if I hesitate in the moment in the kill, I'm dead, or I don't get the kill, so we don't survive. So that stuff had to like fall to the back of our brain. So in a lot of ways, you're right. I mean, we are we didn't evolve that, because that could have killed us. Like,
yeah.
We to be able to call up emotions instantly did not serve us at the time.
Right. And the time was all of the time.
Right.
Of every forefather that you have had, that's being passed down, and that's down.
So I think we can even segue back to the women. This was something I think we've talked about before. I feel like I've talked about it. Anyways, what it is, or one of the things to add to the fact that they had to be communicators or unifiers or very cooperative, was that you have this dude that just came back from, maybe a better modern day example is war. You came back from war.
I was thinking that when you're talking about the sitting around in a group and talking about the bear. It's like, that's a sacred thing, man.
Yeah, exactly. So you see that with like the VFW. Like, the guys go to the VFW and like they literally had to debrief.
Debrief,
Yeah. So anyways, but what I'm getting at is you have this volatile, person that is not male, that came back from the hunt, the war, or whatever, and hasn't dealt with all of his emotions, and the slightest thing could set him off. They had to be masters of, and they were physically disadvantaged typically smaller, weaker, and they couldn't, like, if he just started ranting or raving or like tried to go after one of the kids because they stepped on his foot or whatever, they had to be able to navigate that through language, through communication, through, you know, all the things that women tend to be known for stereotypically, like through soothing behavior. So I think that they had to develop that way back when, and men are just now in this fucking century even having kind of being brought into that discussion.
Yeah. And
Well,
what happens evolutionarily in a century?
Right. Exactly.
Fucking fuck all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you're expected to have, and it's the expectation, I think, that is really just the killer. It's like women, you know, were like, oh, I can't believe that you're such a, you know, you're such a pig, or you're such a, you know, you're so rough and masculine or whatever. And it's just like, what are you like?
Well, and I think we see swings culturally.
Mm-hmm.
You see in the 60s, men were forced to confront their feminine side, and they became effeminate almost in a lot of ways. They're just like, what, you know, flowy, and just, you know, that hippie vibe of, you know, like love and no matter what.
Yeah, and we're also talking about, like, obviously about Western culture here. Like, I'm sure it varies from culture to culture. I haven't studied it a whole lot in other cultures, and I tend to sort of come back to the unifying principles, which is why I come back to evolution a lot, to natural selection a lot. So this is obviously a Western approach. You know, we are born and raised Americans, so that's going to color our perspective on all of this as well. But it is true that I've seen in our world and from my studies.
Well, and 50 Shades of Grey is kind of where I was going with that. Like, you see this, like, women are, when women are looking for that strong man, they want they want the emotion. They want somebody that's...
They want both.
Exactly. And
Yes.
that's a tall order.
That is a tall fucking order.
Males need to, like... So just opening a discussion, if you were talking about culturally in the 60s, that's great. But what doesn't talk about that whole inequity, that big gap evolutionarily with our communication, with our ability to, you know, unify, to navigate, to soothe, to do all those things that women have had those thousands and thousands of years to evolve to. We've got a lot of catch up to do. It feels like in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really true, and I think, you know, as I said, I keep repeating this, and I don't mean to be like a broken record, but it's just about being aware of where you come from and your natural desires. Now, you know, you just can't go out and club a female on the head and drag her back to your cave anymore.
Damn it.
I know. I mean, Josh can and has. We don't like to talk about it. Technically, he was never.
Oh, that's super, like,
never
that's
convicted.
kidnap and rape. So no, yeah.
Huh?
So that's kidnap and rape. Let's not put that out in the world.
But it used to just be a hot date. So like
exactly. So I picked this girl up in the bar. Like, literally picked her
at the
up.
marsh. I actually like picked her up and threw her over my shoulder, and put her back at the cave.
I picked her up, hit her head over the bar. She was super docile after that.
I think she's pretty into me. I think it's going somewhere.
Yeah, she only lost like a few pints of blood. I think she knew what was going on.
No bueno. We are not condoning that shit. No asking if people smell like things smell like chloroform before you go into your cave. Yeah, it's really a it's a fascinating dynamic. So you know that that's there. Obviously, it doesn't work in today's world anymore, and you know nor should it. But
it's where we started from.
It's where we started, and it's still in your system. So what's the goal? The goal is to be able to stand in your power, or what was your phrase for it? Keep your genitals.
Oh yeah, keep your boys.
Keep your testicles. So you stand in your power in an undefended way. It's not like a fuck you, I'm a man. It's like, okay, so I'm a man, and I need, you know, X, Y, and Z. You know, I need space. I need this. I'm happy to talk to you, but not right now. Whatever your, you know, thing is.
Yeah, I had a teacher that actually, and it there was so much judgment that I had a hard time with it. But he was like, literally stand there, legs a little bit wide, and feel your balls connected with the ground, like kind of being, you know, centered. Is kind of but I just was like laughed it off. But later on, that started to resonate with me. Like, oh yeah, that is kind of when you feel that way.
Yeah.
You're not putting yourself in that.
To like ground in your masculinity. Like the goal of being an enlightened male is not to be more female.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
To be a better male.
Right. Well, and it's so complimentary when you achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah, when you come to that place, and that may sound confusing to a lot of people, and I welcome you to write in with questions if you have any about that, because it's a really fascinating thing. But that's absolutely the goal. That's absolutely the goal. So that's actually going to wrap us up here for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Josh.
Absolutely, Miss Dominique.
Great discussion.
Ooh, it was very back and forth. It was nice.
It was. I'll back your fourth.
What? May the fourth be with you. It's the lift.
Much love to you. Find me at dominidrew.com or on Twitter at dominidrew. And I look forward to hearing everyone next week.
Adios.
Talk to you later.